right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Simple Balanced Life. We have a special outline for everyone tonight, and I pray that you will all, just come in and do your comments and just let us know what you're getting out of our session tonight. Tonight we have Mr. Mark Miller, who is coming to us. He's from the Board of Supervisors out of the Midlothian District. He's going to be talking to us tonight about leadership through the lens of a public servant. And so we are so excited tonight to learn what he's going to teach us tonight about being, when I thought about this topic, I thought about being a servant leader, right? And so he's going to share with us tonight. But before we get into that, I want to have a word of scripture tonight for us. And I'm going to ask Pastor G if he will come in afterwards and give a word of prayer. A scripture that I thought was befitting for tonight is coming out of Matthew, the 20th chapter, and the 25th verse through the 28th. And it says, "But Jesus called them unto him and said, Ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many." And this is out of the King James Version of Matthew, the 20th chapter, 25th through the 28th verses. And so I thank God for this reading on tonight. So I am excited and looking forward to us diving into this topic tonight. Pastor G will come and just give us a brief word of prayer and have words and turn this over to Mr. Miller.
Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you on tonight as we come together for leadership. And you would have us to be the leaders that you want us to be in our homes, in our churches, in society as a whole, in our schools, in our jobs. We just thank you, dear God, that all that we do will bring glory to your name, dear God. And we thank you for it. And thank you for tonight for Dr. Mark Miller being on. And dear Lord, you be in the midst, that your name be glorified and that the people will be blessed. Amen.
Amen.
I met Mark about 3 years ago, I believe. And he had spoken before we actually went broadcasting like this. And then we saw him in April where they have Chesapeake County Mental Health Program Services has this thing they do each year lately at Bright Point about the coalition about helping people with mental health challenges and so many facets of that. It could bring homelessness, or homelessness can bring on mental health, poverty, not eating the proper foods, lack of proper nutrition, trauma. And it's really been a great collaboration. And I was glad to see Mark again this past April for my wife, Pastor Jay. She was able to come. And so we thank God for that. But on tonight, a very, very good subject, as Pastor Jay had already said, leadership through the lens of a public servant. Sometimes when we get in these positions, we have a tendency to forget where we come from. It's very easy to start out low. I mean, let's say, put it this way, you start out kind of down on the totem pole, and we get up and get out, and we forget that there are people who help us get to where we are. No one man is an island. So as long as I know Mark, he seems to be a pretty cool guy, someone who's, I believe, fun-loving but serious about what he's doing and trying to help people. Also, he will explain more. Not only he's a county supervisor, but he works with or at Bright Point Community College, and he will go further into that. So I'm just so glad to be in his circle, so to speak, or have met him. And on tonight, you will hear more about him and what he has to say. So, Mark, without further ado, it's in your hands.
Well, thank you, Gullie. Thank you, Janice, for the invitation to hang out with you all and to speak. I am deeply humbled that you have both have asked me to come this evening. Again, I couldn't be more grateful. Um, I thought I was kind of the kind of like the trickster in me was I was going to start out and pretend that I left the mute button on, and I was thinking about a scene from Forrest Gump where he's on stage and talking about the Vietnam War, and someone pulls out all the microphones and nobody can hear him. And at the very end, he says, "And that's all I have to say about that." I thought it was like, "Oh, Mark, that is the part of you that is wants to be playful, and at the same time, it provides an opportunity for me to kind of hide." And I could say, "Well, you guys missed it. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to turn on the microphone." Um, I thought what I'd start with is just to kind of give you a little bit of my background and how I ended up here. And I want to go back a little bit in my history, just as far as to say about ministry and working with that which is greater than ourselves. And however you decide to call that, if it's God or Jesus or Great Spirit or Mother, all those kind of things. Hold on for just a second. I have a question, just a technical question. Are you able to hear my cat in the background meowing?
A little bit.
Okay,
Oh,
so what
Thought
I'd
I
like to
did.
do is I'm going to just deal with my cat for a moment. I'm going to turn off the camera.
Okay.
And I promise I won't do anything mean to the cat, but I do want to let the cat out. Hold on for just a second.
Okay. You all just hold on one moment there. We at one time, that's kind of funny. One time we had a speaker to come on, and one of her children came right into view, and that happened. I think it was her son. And then I think someone had a dog that was actually trying to come in. So these things happen, but it's so funny. But again, we're so thankful for you all being here tonight. We had a cat issue, we've had a kid issue. So Mark is back, and the
I
cat
am back.
issue is straightened out.
and, and
Rule
we
number
and we
one
and
with
we have
rule
and we
number
have
one with
people
being a
issues.
public servant. Was that Janice? I'm sorry.
I said, and sometimes we have a people issue, right? We
Yeah.
have a cat, so it's all
Um,
good.
Yeah, I had a professor when I was getting my master's degree. And he was teaching in one of my psychology classes, and he said, I don't know what got under his bonnet, but he started out, he did a whole lecture on the fact, a truth in his life, which is that cats rule the world. And he gave a 45-minute lecture on the fact that cat with an absolute, saying that we only exist in this world to take care of our cats. And I think that that is so entirely true on so many levels. And so it's always, I think that being a public servant, a lot part of it is just paying attention to what's going on in the room, and being able to read the room, what's going on, and if it's a cat or if it's a child who is crying, or if someone is coming at me with anger or frustration or disappointment or all those feelings. How important it is to recognize that. I wanted to go back about ministry, and I just wanted to mention that when I started out, I decided, I thought that I wanted to be a rabbi. And I spent years studying through college with the plan of going into rabbinical school. And what I learned through that process was that although Judaism is really important to me, that how important it is to understand cross culturally, across religions, to understand Buddhism and Taoism and Confucianism and Hinduism and Christianity and Judaism and Islam, Baha'i, shamanism, to really get a cross cultural view of how everyone sees that which is greater than themselves or not, and to make space for that also. It reminds me of that story, if you ever heard of um, the elephant, the five blind men in the elephant, and one is holding onto the trunk, is holding onto the tail, is holding onto a leg, and each of the blind men are able to describe the elephant, but only from a contextual perspective. And so that is so important in being a public servant, a servant leader, is recognizing that everyone is coming at me or coming to me with a different context, a different way of looking at what they're looking at, and to honor that and to see it. So again, I kind of briefly mentioned it, but I'll go back for a second, is that my undergrad was in English education. The plan was to become a rabbi, and that proved not to fit for me. And where I ended up going was getting my doctorate in clinical psychology. And so I have spent, and where I went was out in California. I went to the California Institute of Integral Studies, CIIS.edu. Integral, for me and for the school, really refers to putting things back together that we tended to take apart. So we sometimes see things binary if it's masculine or feminine. We tend to see things as binary if we say earth and heaven. We tend to see binary things all around us. And often there are things that have so much in common, and then often things are much more on a gray scale and a continuum. And so it's easy to say Democrat, Republican. It's easy to say black, white. It is easy to say all these things. And the bottom is that we're part of a much larger continuum. And as a result, that's how I come down on things. What do we have in common is far more important to me, those things that we don't have in common. Now, that does not mean we ignore. And that does not mean that we pretend that there aren't fundamental differences, but the point of it is to respect those differences in such a way that we're able to recognize how we work with each other. I had a teacher of mine that would say, "Thank God for the button pushers, because it provides an opportunity for us to learn about ourselves." And I love that concept. And so when we're going through, when I'm going through and doing both my jobs, and I know, Gullie, you mentioned it, we'll talk about that in a second, is that I'm always going through the process of paying attention to what's going on in here. What does it feel like to be in the room with the person? And if I'm able to do that, I do a far better job of kind of stepping back from the situation to not react. And I'll make the argument that reactivity is truly the game in town. In all aspects of my life, I'm paying attention to reactivity and how my buttons got pushed. If I'm able to do that, I think I do a better job as a public servant and as a husband and as a father, and just being in the world in a better way. I have two jobs. One is my responsibility is as at Brightpoint Community College as a professional counselor. My job is to work with students. I work with about 300 plus students that have some disabilities. And my responsibilities are to level the playing field. What accommodations would be the most helpful to ensure or to provide the opportunity for our students to be successful? And so that's what I work with my students. My wife and I have a running joke. Mark, do you have to really fall in love with all of your students? And my response is there any other way? That's just how I do my job. The other side of it is being elected as the Midlothian supervisor for the Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors. And I represent about 80,000 people. And my wife will say to me, "How are you doing on falling in love with all of your constituents?" And my answer to that is, I'm still working on that one. But that's the learning. that constantly is the learning. People say and post things on social media that are just straight up lies, totally made it up. And it hurts me. It really is painful to me when folks do that. I'm a feeler. If you were to look at my Myers-Briggs, you're going to see, if you know that particular psych eval, I am an introvert. I'm a feeler. And I am an intuitive. I think I'm an INFP. And so I work a lot with intuition. I definitely am an introvert, and certainly I feel everything, which can be another opportunity for me to learn that even if I'm putting my heart out there, even if I am really believing, not always am I right, but really believing that I'm going in the right direction, that people come at me with with anger, and that's I'm still working on that one. Um, as far as being a public servant, if you were to look at my career, and if you would see that that's what I've done my whole life. As a drug treatment counselor in Berkeley, as I worked for Chesterfield Mental Health for 13 years. I've been at Brightpoint for the last 11 years, and for the last 2.5 years, serving as the Midlothian supervisor, which I really feel like I am so blessed, and that's on all levels. I don't believe I'm in charge. I think Spirit is in charge, and my job is to listen to my intuition and follow the breadcrumbs. And I guess to kind of sum up this chapter of what I'm talking about is ego. It ego is a very real thing, and at the same time, ego is a total waste of time and energy. Um, I don't see myself as any more or less than anyone else. Anyone I interact with, I'm a student, and I'm here to learn. And I'm hoping that we can have dialogue about whatever that is that we may or may not disagree with. But ego is a waste of time. I don't see myself as when I think of leader, I sometimes that seems very hierarchical to me. I feel much more comfortable seeing what I can do as a public servant to help everyone to grow and to live a life to fullest blossoming and greatest good. That's what I've been taught. That ultimately it's about living life. What can I do to assist with helping individuals live a life to fullest blossoming and greatest good? And if I'm able to assist, fantastic. I am more than happy to help. And at the same time, I'll be damned if I'll carry you. Meaning that people have to take personal responsibility. And so I'll do everything I can, but I can tell you with a great deal of confidence that there is not a codependent bone in my whole body. There just isn't. I don't. I'll do everything I can for you, but I will not carry you. And what that means is that you need to meet me halfway. And if you can't meet me halfway, there's not a lot I can do. From the dais last couple of weeks ago, from the dais during the Board of Supervisor meeting, I made the analogy of something that was asked of me many years ago. If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? And the answer to that is no, it does not make a sound. Because what that means is that you need to have a giver and a receiver. And so that tree could fall, but if there's no one there to hear it, it's as if it never made a sound because there was no one there to hear it. So I can speak and I can tell people what my thoughts are and with regard to whatever issue is coming up. And if the person isn't willing to hear it, then I didn't need to speak in the first place, and vice versa. meaning if they're speaking, if I'm not listening, if I am not truly deeply listening, and I'm also proving that I'm hearing it because I'll repeat it back to them. This is what you said, and I want to make sure, even if I don't agree with it, this is what I heard you say. Um, am I hearing you? Did I get you right? Is there, and what am I missing? And see if they're able to know and feel in their heart that they've been heard. Um, but then I'm requesting the same thing back. Is can you repeat back to me what I'm saying, so that we can know that we've heard each other. That's the way God. That's the reason why God gave us two ears and one mouth, so that we listen two times more than we're actually speaking. And look, my doctorate's in clinical psychology. I can't help it. My job is to listen. And at the same time, um, I want to make sure that there's give and take in the conversation. If it's just one person who is pontificating and just wants to be heard, um, and there's no end in sight, then there's not a lot of reason why I need to be there. But I'll continue to mirror it back, and at the same time, I'm hoping that there's an opportunity for them to know that I heard them. So if that for me is through the lens of a public servant, one other comment is that when you look at the org chart for Chesterfield County, it is the citizens who's at the top of the org chart. I work for you. I work that you. I can't do my job unless you allow me the opportunity to do the job that you hired me to do. And if y'all feel that I'm not a good match, that's okay. There's other things that I can be doing. But I'm hoping that if you hired me for the job, that you feel that my heart is in the right place, that I'm paying attention to what are the wants and the needs of Chesterfield County, and that you know that I'm doing the best I'm able to do with the information I have in front of me. So that's my basic definition. Is if my job is to be a public servant, to help where I'm able to help, and go from there. So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe questions are is a good place to go. I don't want to spend the whole time talking. I recognize I'm the one who's supposed to be presenting, but in the final analysis, um, a leader is not meaning on any level that they're in charge. I don't feel that way at all.
Exactly.
My job is to listen. Ultimately, you hired me to make a decision, and I make a decision as best as I'm able with the data I have in front of me. But it's not about ego. That's not the game in town. At
That's true.
least I'd like to think so. And if it is true, I mean, you guys are seeing my ego. Mark, this is an unconscious process with you, and you're just not seeing it. Hey, I'm gonna tell me about it. What am I not seeing? Help me to make that which is unconscious conscious.
Mm. What?
And Mark, I think this is a very good point that you made when you brought in the part about, a person who is a leader for the community or wherever you serve is a person who pays attention to what's going on in the room. I thought that was very profound because typically when you see people that have that heart to lead and others in the community, in the church, or wherever they are servant leaders at, they are the people that typically step back and they are attentive. They are paying attention to their surroundings. They're paying attention. I'll just say this. I used to be an usher in the church, and one of the things that I knew as a part of my leadership role there, to serve others, was to be attentive to if children were getting out of hands with their parents and the parents couldn't handle them, or if somebody was looking like they were feeling faint, or if something was going on with someone, it's just, panning the room, to make sure that, people are taken care of. And so this is kind of how I equate your job to is, you're looking around and you have a heart to accommodate the people that you are serving. And I think that's a very special thing, because everybody, doesn't typically have that kind of heart and that kind of view. Some people just come in and they want to get served and they want to go. That's those people that when you're around a table, you're in a gathering, let me get to the table first and get my food and let me go. But they're not attentive to, my thing when I'm doing that, I'll say I'll wait till the end, till everyone else is served. And so, our mindset should be, I like to use the word others minded. We are looking to see how others are taken care of. And I think, to do that, you really have to pay attention to what is going on in the room. And the other, point that you made about seeing what it is that we all have in common, what it is that we have that's alike. And let's work with those things, because many times people get torn apart by focusing on what we don't have in common, and that can become a deterrent and can become something that just separates us, and prevent us from being that leader that is there to do the job and to help others get through. So those were just some points that stood out to me. I was a servant leader in essence in corporate America for 44 years. And, that was one of the things that I had to do. I had to basically look out to see the needs of the people, whether it was training that they needed, whether it was, handling their complaints, or, just whatever it was. I had to pan the room, not just one time, but every day. It's an everyday process. And you really have to have the heart for that when you step into this particular role that you are in. And thank you for your service in that area of Chesterfield County.
You're welcome.
Pastor G.
Yeah, two things were coming up. Gullie, did you want to chime in before I?
No, go ahead on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The two things were coming up for me, Janice, when you were speaking, in that one of the things I learned really, really quickly is this isn't about me.
Right.
Right? It's not about me. And for those politicians that make it about them, I have to tell you, it just completely turns my stomach. And what I've learned is that there are sometimes when folks will draw an opinion on me because I didn't speak out on a particular issue. And I never saw myself as a individual who seeks out attention, but I will say this, if I'm going to get involved in a particular issue, whatever that might be, it has to be a KRA, a key result area. If I have no control over that particular issue, there is no reason for me to be involved. By that I mean that I could speak to a particular issue, but in the event, if it's just because I want to get on television, or I just want to be in the paper, or I just want to be seen, I think that in its own right is something that should be a tip-off. That there's something else going on. I'm tempted to diagnose it, but I'm not going to. Let's just say that there's something else going on that needs to be paid attention to. The other thing is that for me as a public servant, one of the things that kind of gets to me, or where I have the biggest challenge, is for folks that are out of integrity and not dependable. If someone is out of integrity, or they're just simply not dependable, it's really, really hard for me to work with them. And I do everything I can to meet them where they're at. But if they are out of integrity and they're just not dependable, and it's not one and the other, it's one or the other or both. It's just information I'm paying attention to. Is that in the final analysis, um, we have to look in our own mirror. I mean, we have to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, where am I with this? And am I in it for my own wants or needs, instead of looking at it as a way of, um, am I being truthful? I made a decision uh, recently, and it was out of integrity. And I knew I was out of integrity when I made that decision. And I started kind of spiraling down with a true sense of depression. And I really was getting concerned about my own mental health. And I called a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, and I called him. And although I left a one-word message for him, which was help,
Help.
and he called me back and he said, "What's up?" And I explained the situation, and he said, "You stepped out of integrity." He said, "I have a better idea. Why don't you just go ahead, dump gasoline over your head, and light a match?" Because it's, for me, it's pretty much the same thing. And so I stepped out of integrity. I learned from that. Um, Anybody who says that they have figured it out is either lying or they're trying to sell you something. That's it. I have not figured anything out short of I am a I'm a I'm a person in progress. I'm
Yes. Yes.
trying to learn like everybody else and do the best as I am able.
Well, I like the part when you're saying there's so much, really. I've got some notes here. But the part that really hit me is what you just said then, that you want to make sure you're doing things in integrity and and also slash to be dependable. And then when you talk to your mentor and the response, like, wow. But why not walk in integrity? Let me ask you this question. And you were talking about this, of course, overall, that you're here to work for the people. Okay, and that's any of us. Somehow we all work for somebody else, and let's just make it plain. But being a public servant, and look at the political landscape, even locally in Chesterfield County. If we're going to start there and go beyond, do you run across others that somewhat have the same mind, or is it more of what you're seeing is about my status, how high I can go, and what I can get from the people rather than giving to the people?
Yeah, I've come across folks that have been elected, and then they're already looking for the next shiny object. I have said to folks, I am so content being your Midlothian supervisor. I don't want to be a delegate. I don't want to be a senator. I don't want to be an attorney general. I don't want to be any of these things. All I want to be, and what more could I ever ask for than to be the Midlothian supervisor? So when folks get elected and then all of a sudden they're looking to climb the proverbial ladder, that is a indicator for me that they weren't in integrity because they were hired to do a job. And if they're already looking for the next, then that really, the clinical word is the heebie-jeebies. Um, it just gives me, it really makes me feel um, like there's a lot more going on. Um, so, to answer your question, for the most part, I have found that what I love about being on the local level is that a lot of the issues that we're dealing with are nonpartisan. right? If someone reaches out to me as they did yesterday because their culvert needs to be cleaned out, if someone is reaching out to me because they need a new traffic light, they're reaching out to me because their next door neighbor gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning and revs their engine and wakes up the whole neighborhood. Connected with that, when a next door neighbor decides that they want to keep a rooster, um, all of this stuff is nonpartisan. All of it's nonpartisan. It is stuff that I will look at and see if I can figure out what the answer is. Um, so I have found that partisanship on the local level, it really doesn't have any place in how I define doing the work. It doesn't matter if the individual where they are on this on the political spectrum. Um, we all have wants and needs. And if it's something that I'm able to assist with, my next door neighbor has a branch that's up over my yard. I'm worried it's going to fall. Um, I'm concerned because my real estate taxes are too high. Um, I'm worried that my the next, because it goes on and on. I get between 50 and 100 emails a day, and I go through them and I try to figure out where I can help, where I can't. I'm very, very blessed to have an incredible Chesterfield County staff that are all in, and I have been blown away by the blessings that I have had to work for and with the folks at Chesterfield and work for and with the folks at Bright Point. Whoa! I mean, I just think they are the most amazing people I've ever worked with in my life. Um, it's just incredible. All public servants, all doing the best they can. If it's for our students or for it's those that live here in Chesterfield. Um, I think where the challenge comes in is where people um, misinterpret or make assumptions, or I call it the hasty fallacy. I don't even, that's an actual name in psychology called the hasty fallacy. And it goes like this. If you have a part of the information and you ultimately come up with a final conclusion, you're going to end up in the wrong place because you don't have all the data. So if you have all, it's like looking through the world through a peephole. It's interesting in that people have been having to wear masks, right, during COVID. So you only see their eyes and their cover of their nose, and the rest of it, you imagine what the rest of their face is going to look like. But you come up with this conclusion of what they look like. And then they take off their mask, and then it's a very different view than what you thought. Um, and what occurs in this world is that I can't always be 100% forthcoming. For whatever reason, I'm either under a non-disclosure agreement or there's a much broader picture that I'm taking into account, and people will jump up and down, scream and shout, Mark, what the heck are you doing? How could you have possibly come to that conclusion? And the answer is they're suffering from a hasty fallacy. They don't have all the information. I wish I could provide all the information. However, in my situation, my circumstances, and what's best for Chesterfield County, not always do we want to provide that information because it could lead to an undoing. So um, I'm blessed to work with folks at Chesterfield and what they do every day for our folks. Um, the Chesterfield County is a quad triple A rated county in the country. We're one of, I think, 6 localities that there are 4 independent rating agencies like S&P, like Moody's, all those folks, and they give these AAA ratings. And we're one of only a handful throughout the country that is quad AAA rated. And yet folks will stand in judgment, but you don't hear anything from them when they have drinking water. Right?
I think, yeah, I think your comment about the great staff speaks to the person that you are. Sometimes I don't know really how to say this, but many times our depiction of others are a reflection of us, right? And so by you seeing them as a great group of people and staff to work with and support you, I think that speaks to who you are to them as well.
I hope so.
I like the fact that you brought out two very important words in my life and what I like to stand for: integrity and dependability. Being when I used to interview people, I those were two things that I tried to bring out in my interview, and not in just objective questioning and behavioral questions, but I needed to draw out, can I depend on you? And are you a person of integrity? And so those are huge things because it will tell you a lot about the individual and how they're going to be to work with. I like the fact that you also brought out about the ego part, right? How an ego is a waste of time. If you have a person that's dealing with an ego problem, but it is, and as I thought about that, it is also a waste of energy. People spend a lot of energy, wasted energy, with ego problems, and thinking that it's all about them. And at the end of the day, like you said before, they've done a lot of talking, they've done a lot of acting and moving and getting nowhere, because at the end of the day, they had everything pointed back to them. Um, and they thought it was all about them. But you can't, definitely got to watch all of these characteristics as you are talking about, being a leader for people, because I think we have to keep in mind that our leadership is going to be reflective to others as to how we are expecting them to act, how we are expecting them to be as individuals that we're going to be serving. And so it's important that we walk in integrity, that we show ourselves dependable, that we're going to be there for whoever it is that we are serving. And so these are very important. So I thank you for those particular comments,
Yeah.
and for the points that you're bringing out to us tonight. I pray and hope that people that are listening tonight will get some tips from these points tonight about serving community, about serving others, because it's very important. We bring these sessions so that people can learn how to be better leaders, and how we can get pointers from others on their experiences, and how situations of life that they encounter, and how that can help
Yeah.
us. Although many people will still say, I'm not a leader, but I like to say everybody is a leader, in one way or another. Everybody is. Any time that you can bring an influence to someone else's life, or change in someone else's life, whether good or bad, that is leading people, whether right or wrong. They're leading people. So it's important that we stand out to be good, quote, slash, on up, great leaders, so that others can, follow, and we can be a great example to others. Man.
It brings up for me, in Buddhism, the greatest compliment that
Mm.
you can give someone after they've passed is to say that he or she loved washing pots. And
Oh,
and I
wow.
love the concept because what they're saying is that they brought a certain um, happiness to doing those things that are hard to do. Um,
Hmm.
I go on runs. Like even this morning, I went on a run. I get up at 5:30. I'm out the door at 6, and I go on a 4 mile run. And I always come back with my hands filled with trash. And I pick up trash, and I'll, and make sure that as I'm going through. I think that'd be a very sweet thing for someone to say is he loved picking up trash, um, and seeing it um, as something that is an act of love. Um, there's a wonderful story with my mentor. He said that he's a shaman, he's a medicine man. He don't know if he called himself a shaman, but a medicine man. And he was speaking to the story where he um, was taking folks to a very sacred place, and they had to work hard to get to that sacred place. It was up, they had to go up over a mountain, and it was hard to get there. When they got there, it was just filled with trash. And his reaction at the time was anger. He got so angry. Who the heck do these people think they are? This is a sacred place, and they trashed it. Da, 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 da. And what came through to him was, how many times in your life have you left behind trash where other people had to pick it up?
That's right. That's right.
And kind of that came through for him. And his answer was, my opportunity now to pick up other people's trash. And it does not necessarily mean the physical trash for him, right? It can be, you ended a relationship in a way, or I ended up being reactive in a situation and really, put that stink energy, as my teacher would say, out into the universe, and now I have to go clean it all up. Um, and maybe someone else is going to have to clean it all up. But it comes down
Right.
to
Right.
that point where it is more of the mundane things in this world that we need to take care of, and maybe that's what a leader is to um, not see ourselves as um, too much of a person that can't pick up trash.
Hey,
Right.
that's true. That's true.
Um,
That's
yeah.
true.
The other thing, Jess, that came up for me as I was taking notes is that back to the idea of integrity and dependability. Where I stand is that I say what I'm going to do, and then I do what that I said.
Mm,
And um,
hmm.
and when something's out of my typical routine, it scares the bejeebies out of me. I was so scared, Gullie, Jess, that I would miss this evening. And I said to my wife, I need help because this is out of my typical routine. And I said to her, just can you help me? I need help because I don't want to miss this. This is really important, and I'm scared that I'm going to not, that I'm going to get distracted and something will go on and then I'll miss it. And then I would be out of integrity. And then I'd have to go clean up that mess. Um, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't be the first time. And so it's like, all right, back to the drawing board markets. And now I got to do my work.
Hmm.
So,
And
it's
that's,
something that, the cat wanted attention. And so I need to go back and do my apologies to the cat. I couldn't give you attention, Blaze, right now. I owe you an apology. I'm sorry. So it really comes to that granular level.
yes.
And, Blaze was like, Dad, I want attention. I was like, Blaze, I can't give it to you right now, but I will. Um, and so I'll wander back to Blaze and say, I'm really sorry. And because I couldn't in that moment.
Mhm. But that is a sign too of our value to others, how we value others. Just the fact of, you could have said in your mind, well, it's just Janice and Gullie. You know, if I don't meet them tonight, then that'll be fine. They'll, I can catch them another time. But when you value other people and you look at people different. You're like, it doesn't matter how big of a platform we have or how small of a platform we have. Your commitment and your word was out there that you would do it. And but some people don't care about following through to make sure that they do what they
Yeah.
say they were going to do, whether it was
Yeah.
small or whether it was huge. They don't care about that. But to value people, it really, if I make a promise to my grandboys, I could say, oh, they're just the grandboys. They'll get over it. But no, I want to keep my word to
Yeah.
them because like you say, about the picking up the trash. When they remember me, I want them to know that my grandmother was a person of integrity. My grandmother, everything that she pretty told us, she said she did it, or if she couldn't, she came back and told us why she could not do it. And so I think that's very important to us in life, the way we treat people, the way we appreciate people, because then it's going to show our servitude. It's going to show how we feel about what we do. And I think that we should have more of a passion and a zeal about what we do. We are ministers, and we could say at times, it's not but a few people that come in, but our servitude, we value them, and we want to make sure we give them what they need. If they don't take advantage of it or not, we still want to be able to have it there to provide it for them, to them. And we want to follow through on, most importantly, what we promised God that we would do as servants to Him. And so I think it's very important. I'm enjoying this. Is it? I don't know if it be
We love
dialogue
it.
or trilogue tonight. I don't know what it is, but I'm enjoying this
Okay.
tonight, and I hope that those are joining in. I hear some people in the comments saying that they are loving this as well. And thank you all for being here, Miss Fulcrum and Danielle. Thank you all for joining in with us tonight. And so Mark is sharing some really good information with us. Pastor G, you were going to say
Yeah,
something.
it's so much, and we don't have time now. When I was listening to this and thinking about a leader, Jesus Christ was the greatest leader, the most powerful leader on earth, yet the most humble leader. He knew he was, he knew his mission, but he spent time with the disciples for approximately 3.5 years, teaching and building them. And that's what a leader does. He or she builds others to keep that particular thing going on. Pastor Jay and I, with this ministry, started on our back porch, as I'm looking at the back porch from
Yeah.
this room. And we want this to go on. A leader will want the entity to go on when they're off of the scene, but while they're there, like Christ, He
Amen.
built them up. And her, to me, one of the greatest example of a mighty leader was a mighty servant and submissive. He washed the disciples' feet. Now, in that day and time, they didn't have Nike, they didn't have uh, the boots. I wear Western boots. They didn't have all those different type of boots, and they walked on with sandals and camel manure and animal manure. But Jesus was so humble. He said, "Let me wash your feet." And I think it was Peter said, "No, no, no." He said, "If I can't wash your feet, basically, you can't be with me." A leader has to be humble, and I thank God that my wife and I'm gonna tell everybody, Jan, it's 46 years. She told me, "Don't tell me." 46 years this year. In the previous ministries, some of the things we've done as leaders, I mean, for me, I've done security, drove the van. I between the daycare and the church, and I was leader over that. One person had told her mother worked at the church, said, "I passed by and Brother Gullie was on the roof. I was giving the contractors whatever to do." And the next time I came back, he was doing something else. And I'm downtown with social services for the daycare of the church. And my wife, I mean, she was watching the kids, she was singing, she was ushering. Uh, Brother Gullie, Deacon Gullie, the commode is running over. I'm thinking to myself, I'm some more men around there, you know what I mean? But we never found it beneath us. And even right now, we'll serve. We serve. Nothing for us to pick up a broom if we at a place, an event, or help clean the tables. Forget the titles, forget all of that. We we made God a promise. They want to be the best leaders in Him that we can. So a leader will go beyond the titles, the recognition, and all of those things. And another one you had mentioned, and I take this, and I have to be careful when I'm talking to someone, and I don't want to degrade them because I have been cautioned on that. I will repeat what you say to me because it's important. I will repeat what I said to you because it's important. And a lot of times when I repeat, it's not so much for you, maybe, but and I'm making sure I understand what I'm saying and I'm understanding what you are saying because I don't want either one of us to walk away. It's like, what in the heck did he say?
Right.
So in everything, there's a sender and there's a receiver. A lot of times we will send, and especially as leaders, we will send information. Because John Maxwell spoke about that, and in 21 if irrefutable laws. We are thinking we are connecting with people. It's called about connecting, and we just knew we hit a home run, and the person looking at you like, so that's why, again, we send it, but we sometimes have to question or make sure the person not down degrading them, making sure they received it. Just like that tree in the forest that fell, it makes a sound, but if there's no one there to hear it, like you said, it's as if didn't make the sound. So as leaders, we're gonna have to keep that mentality to make sure we're connecting and also that mentality that we listen. Because unfortunately, many of us, once we get on that scale, we don't want to listen to anyone. We think we have all the answers. And let me tell you, we don't have as much of the clarity that we think we might have. Um, that's and then you said, and I like that, it's not about me. And my wife says that a lot. I'm gonna do a little play on that. It is about me, kind of an oxymoron, but it's not about me. It is about me that I do what I said I'm going to do. It's very important that we be people of integrity. We be people, we say and we do. But we can say a whole lot of things just to get people's votes, approval, and make it about us. But I want to make sure my life is about me doing what I said I was going to do. So it's very important. It's to be a leader. We all are leaders, good or bad, but we really got to make sure that we are doing what we said we can do. And I'm gonna say this: I'm glad you were able to come through this evening. When you said it, I don't know if you recognize it. I started laughing on the first Thursday of the month, of course, we do the mental today leadership. On the third Thursday of the month, we do the mental health. I've had people on both, but I had people dealing with leadership. See, I've got the schedule almost finished for the whole year months ago. I mean, I'm constantly contacting people, writing it down, follow up. A couple of months ago, it happened 2 times in about a 2 month span. Contact the person, agree, call the person back, making sure, like with you, Mark, send me a headshot, send me some information, blah, blah, blah. We work through it. There's one particular person, a leader now, owner of a business. All of a sudden, it's like this person kind of vanished like a genie in thin air. And I'm constantly calling, I'm texting, calling. I'm doing all I can. I said, oh. So it's too late to try to call somebody else. I just knew I had to pick it up and keep it going. About a week before the due date, person finally called me back. Oh yeah, I got to go to Texas. I got to go to California. They had to go out of town, wherever it was, North Carolina. This person did not contact me to tell me they couldn't do it until about a week before. I got to go to Hong Kong somewhere. I said, that is not good. And another one never reconnected with me. I mean, this one. So that bothers me. If something comes up out of your control or you decide you don't want to do it, especially in that, let me know ahead of time, because that does not show good leadership. And when we do that, when we fail to do our part, that puts in a pipeline of leadership, like the traffic. When an accident occurs, you get a traffic jam. When we don't keep our promises, there's a traffic jam, and it put pressure on other people. And so when you had mentioned that, that ran back to my thought pattern. That has happened several times with us. But guess what? You got to move on.
Right. I mean, is there?
Yeah, and usually that.
I'm sorry, Janice.
No, I was going to say, and that usually moving on means, Janice, can you fill in for this person?
You don't have to tell every secret, baby. You don't have to. Thank you for throwing me under the traction umbrella. Go ahead, Omar.
I was going to tell you or share with you that, do you know what the 3 most powerful words in the English language are? Let it go. Right? Do you know what the 2 most powerful words in the English language are? Oh, well. And you know what the most powerful word is in the English language? Bummer. And so we're not in control.
Let it go.
On how things are going to unfold. Just not in control. And so, for those individuals that had an attachment to something, and now it's not manifesting the way we had hoped it would, are we able to shape-shift it, pivot, do what we need to do to say, hey, this person was said they were going to do it. I depended on them to be part of this, and that's where they are. And at the same time, they didn't show up. And how do we let that go in a way that, because how do we give them, like Jesus, how do we forgive?
Grace.
Same teacher would say that we're all sacred and worthy and luminous beings. That the essence of who we are is love, and love is forgiving. That we are all sacred, worthy, luminous beings. That we are love. And that love is forgiving. And I love that play on words. It's forgiving, letting go of, and extending them grace. And at the same time, that love, the essence of who we are, is forgiving to other people. And I love the play on words. It just works for me. That's why I've hung out with this guy for the last 25 plus years, pushing 30, because what I've learned is that am I able to let go of my attachment to how this was hoping to play out? And am I able to pivot and work with it without buying into the drama of it? And that's work. If you can show me how to do it, let me know. But that's the trick, is that am I able to do a Tai Chi, if you're familiar with Tai Chi, the process of moving and going, and with doing that work, um, and allowing the flow to occur. And instead of trying to paddle upstream, that I'm just going with the flow. And that for me, that's the work. Is that am I going in a direction that makes sense? So when I decided to run for office, I paid attention to that, and it's like, is that part of the flow? And does it make sense in the bigger picture? Um, and does it work for me? And I remember Spirit saying to me, I'm willing to provide this opportunity for you. Um, and if you are willing to step through that doorway, but you have a right to say no. You have a right to say, this doorway, I'm opening this doorway for you. You can step through if you wish, but you have the right to say no. And so for me, it helped me to say, I'm going to step through this doorway and I'm going to do what I need to do to see if this makes sense every step of the way. And in the event I didn't win the election, I've now won two, then I have to say, I'm not in control. I don't know what's for my greatest good. Only I don't know, but I know you do. I don't know. I know that you do. And that's what fits for me, is to say, I'm not in charge. So the ego part can be let go of. And then how do you forgive, these folks that say they're going to do something and they didn't do it? Well, that was I was canoeing upstream and with that, and let's just turn the canoe and let's continue to see what's happening. It's not easy, Gully. I feel you. I'm learning it every day. Um, that's one of the beautiful things in the job that I'm in, is that there I am surrounded by teachers. I'm surrounded by teachers, and can I learn what I need to
Oh, that's
learn
good.
from them, and do the best that I'm able.
Yeah. Well, what happened to me, I have my faith is in God, but I have this just in case attitude about things. Just in case
That's right.
it didn't turn out. We've been doing this for several years, and we've had some challenges where speakers couldn't get on until the last minute. Things have happened. And so the attitude between me and my wife is we just step in and do. There has not been a time that we had to cancel the broadcast on either one. Even when I was going through the cancer bout. And I'm trying to think, I don't think we ever. And my wife and I both got hit with COVID, and she almost didn't make it. And we were both in the hospital. Uh, but between one or the other, but we kept it going because we have this mentality about life, just in case. If something doesn't work out right, if something happened, the person can't do it, we'll just step in and do what we need to do to keep this. As I say, the show must. This is not a show, but the show must go on. And this is our attitude in our marriage, in our ministry, just in case. Having in the back of my mind, if something happened, then we'll keep on going. And to me, that's what a leader will do and should have, that just in case attitude. And especially, from my viewpoint, especially in ministry, because what we deal with, community ministry and all like that, to have that just in case attitude. Ma, I thank you.
Plan B is gee, I was going to say, I call it Plan B.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
Yeah, same.
yeah.
Oh, plan A, a plan B, and a plan Z. Yeah, yeah. That happens. You got many options, and it seems like every one of those won't work. So you got to go to the last. But I like what you said tonight, and overall, I like that point of that public servant. That we've got to get to the point where we're not trying to be the shining star. We got to get them. I'm kind of making a summation in, and that also that we hear and feel the heart of the people that we're serving, and that everyone is not going to agree with us. Matter of fact, this guy I'm looking at, I don't agree with me sometimes. I look at him in the mirror and said, "Boy, are you serious?" So I want to have the attitude: if you don't agree with me, fine. I mean, we're human. It hurts, but I'm so grateful, and I'm gonna bring it personally of our marriage. Like I said, going on those many years, there are times when I look back on it, I'm glad my wife didn't agree with me. I'm glad she said, "Gullie, hold on here. Let's talk about it. Let's think about it." Because after it was over with, I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, what was I thinking?" And I cannot explain to you why I thought that. Maybe my ego. That's what it was. It was an ego, a
Ego.
male ego. So,
Yeah.
any last statements? Either one, Mark, you?
Yeah, Janice, is there something you wanted to say, or I can chime in? But two things are coming up for me. I've been married for 35 years, and I don't know if this is true for you, but certainly true for me. Is that I see my wife, and we've known each other. I was 17 and she was 16 when we met, and I look at her today and I say to myself, I still have no idea who you are. I have no idea who you are. And I love that kind of how it always is always new. And of course I know who she is, but I love the newness and how she's shape shifting in front of me like I'm shape shifting in front of her, and how that keeps the relationship strong. Um, I'm looking at a line. Janice Hughes said, "Love is forgiving to others." I want to make a point around that. In that, the person I've hung out with would say, that we're all sacred, worthy, luminous beings. He would add to it, "I am love, and I am loved."
Yeah.
Right? That I'm a sacred, worthy, luminous being. I am love, and I am loved, and that love is forgiving and receiving. And he would add one more thing. He would say, "With your grace, I am a sacred, worthy, luminous being. I am love and I am loved, and that love is forgiving and receiving." How important it is. It's so much easier to give away than it is to receive. And that we ourselves are sacred and worthy and luminous. Um, so it's work, and um, the fact is that being a servant leader means to me that I have to do my own work. That it's not just about, if I can't do the work unless I do the work. I
That's right.
can't do the work unless I do the work, and that means that, like you said it perfectly, is that people are mirrors to us. And that moment when you say, "Oh darn, I just got stuck in that place of ego." And it's like, oh, back to doing the work. It's back to doing the work. And that's the beautiful thing about being alive, is we get to do the work. And there are a lot of people out there, frankly, that don't
Yes.
want to do the work. And I give them grace for that. But for me to be a leader, to be a public servant, I can't do the work unless I do the work.
Yeah.
True.
Well, Mark, I thank you very much. I thank all that have joined. And of course, people, even after tonight, people will comment on it. And we're just so grateful for every last one of you. Tonight has been kind of a mellow, straightforward, entertaining, and a learning moment. And I've learned a lot tonight. And Mark, I thank you very much. We hope you all the success in both of your career, your family, and your career. And we'll see each other again or some conferences, so we'll be in contact.
Look forward to
And
it.
I'm so grateful. As I tell everyone, I'm telling you, Mark, again and again and again, anyone, if you know of others who would like to participate or do a presentation with the leadership and or mental health, please let me know. And you don't have to be quote unquote a professional person. Just I call it everyday Joe. And but all of us are leaders, and all of us deal with some kind of mental health challenges. And so you want to share your testimonies, share your stories, share your professional input. We will be grateful. So we thank you all very much again, Mark. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Very blessed.
You,
Yes, back at
everyone,
you.
and we will
Thank you,
see you.
Janice.
We will see you again on the third Thursday for our mental health, and follow us on all of our platforms. We thank you very much. Have a good evening and be at peace. Thank you.
God bless you all. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you
evening.
also.
Thanks for
Bye.
joining.
You
Thanks,
bet.
Mark. Good night.